Hello, everybody. I am Drew Duncan for Sync 57 Sports. And as you know by now, a couple of days ago, I did my little 2 cents in 2 minutes on the college football playoff. And I decided, you know what, maybe this is something that I should really dig deeper into. And I want to preface all this by saying 2 things. Number one, I am not generally a guy who talks about how a system is unfair necessarily, at least at length. Now, I have gone to bat for the little guy in the past. I thought that Central Florida going undefeated, they should have been given an opportunity to play in the college football playoff. If they had got smashed, then they would have got smashed. But it damn sure wasn't any worse than what happened with Oklahoma. It damn sure wasn't any worse than what happened with Notre Dame. I mean, how many times has Oklahoma been there and not even been within 2 touchdowns of the team that they're playing against? So just because they're OU, they get in? And Central Florida gets left out? So that doesn't make any sense to me, okay? I feel like telling a group of kids, you did everything we asked you to do, you won all your games, and your best still just isn't good enough. Well, that's not a good enough argument for me. But really this year, I think all that goes out the window, and it's really neither here nor there. How many undefeated football teams do we have right now? Bama, they're not playing this weekend. Their game got postponed. BYU, Cincinnati, Liberty's undefeated, Carolina Coastal, and those 2 teams are ranked, by the way. If I remember right, Carolina Coastal is ranked number 15 in the country. Isn't BYU 8? Isn't Cincinnati 7 or 6? Yeah, Ohio State's still undefeated. Wisconsin's undefeated with what? 1 win? Wisconsin has 1 win. They're undefeated and ranked nationally. Let's say logically, because it's a good possibility at this point, somebody wins their conference with like a 2-0 or 3-0 record, and it's a Power 5 conference. So we're going to tell them, hey, you're automatically going to get in over BYU. And when I said it's not logical this year to allow a BYU or somebody like that in, I meant that for the first time in I don't know how long in my career. I am very well documented as saying, let a Cincinnati play, let a BYU play. Boise State should have been in years ago. Utah should have been in years ago during the BCS era. It should have happened. Of course, they should have had a playoff a long time ago. But regardless, the point is simply this. I know that it was difficult this year to try and figure out what the hell you were going to do. But what really bothers me, though, is that we have all these minds, these people with their degrees that are far superior to a good majority of us. They have masters, they have doctorates, they have all these degrees and levels of education that are far superior to us, and they couldn't seem to put together a game plan that worked for everybody. The Big Ten, the Pac-12, a couple of other conferences initially said, look, we're not even going to play football this year. And whether or not you agree or disagree with this whole COVID thing, whether you think it's the scandemic quote or whether you think it's a real thing and we all need to be very precautious, whatever your stance is going out the window right here to a degree, because the fact of the matter is they made their choices and now maybe they're going to have to live with those decisions. Because how are you going to tell Cincinnati, hey, we had you ranked really high, but we never really had any real intention of giving you a real shot? Are we talking about teams leapfrogging people by 10, going from a 12 to a 2 in this college football playoff? Is that what we're logically thinking about doing? How could all these minds not say, look, if we're going to do this and you guys are going to add it, then this year we're going to have to change the college football playoff a little bit, and we're going to do 16 teams. It's going to be the only logical way, and whatever happens with it, happens with it. We probably won't get all the undefeated teams in, but we can get a good majority of them, and we can just let them have it out. We're going to rearrange the bowls for what they're purpose for, right? So instead of having the Gator Bowl as just the Gator Bowl, boom, now it's a playoff game. There you go. It's settled. And I just don't understand how all these phenomenal minds couldn't put that together somehow. The other thing that I really start to think about is whether or not they should have even had a season. knowing that this was probably going to be a potential issue. I know that we have a tendency to see these teams, win 3 or 4 games and everybody gets really high up on them. And then eventually they get found out or they get snuffed out at some point. You take Tennessee a few years ago when I believe that they were going to lose 4 games. And that's essentially what happened. They started out the season 7-0, but it was a lot of wild wins, miraculous plays. They did what they needed to at the end of games to win, but eventually not being able to put teams away caught up to them, right? So you get snuffed out eventually. It's just the way that it goes. But we've got games right now that are being flat out canceled, right? Postponed. We don't know when they're going to be played again, if they're going to be played again, because it's so late into the season. I mean, this is right around the time when we start looking at conference championship games. And then, of course, going into December, we start talking about the Heisman Trophy. I mean, none of these things are going to be an accurate assessment this year. But what I'm telling you is of who a national champion truly is going to be, which, by the way, at the end of the year is still voted on by the coaches. They just heavily consider whoever the college football playoff champion is. It's the same way that they did it in the BCS era. It's still voted on. What are they going to think? Do I look at BYU's schedule and go, wow, they're amazing? No, of course not. But I look at a team like a Liberty who beat Virginia Tech. They beat Syracuse. Is Syracuse the toughest team on planet Earth right now? As a diehard Syracuse fan, I could tell you absolutely the hell not, but it's generally a game that we win. I understand that the preparation, all kinds of things have gone into this. And the reality of it is for months, I don't think anybody really thought that there was going to be a season anyway. Maybe this was all just too much of a last-minute decision, and somebody just said, okay, fine, to hell with it. We got to pull the trigger one way or the other. What are we going to do, guys? And bam, we had a season. The fact of the matter is simply this. You can't tell me that we're going to have a true national champion this year. It's just not logical to think that we are. And there are a lot of other years where people would have that argument. And for the most part, I would say, look, man, it's the way that it is. Get over it. The committee has been a lot better than we've given them credit for. And I've been saying that over the years. They've been really good. They were justified in what they did with Ohio State. They were justified in not allowing Baylor and TCU in that season. Both of them with 1 losses, pretty much bad 1 losses. And TCU beating a 9-3 Ole Miss football team that really wasn't that good. Sure, they started out the season 9-0, but Treadwell, their best player, got hurt. They had lost, their last 3 out of 4 games out of the season. They started out 8-0, lost 3 out of their last 4. Then, of course, they ended up getting beat in that game. But then you look at Baylor. They got into a much bigger bowl game, and they got snuffed out bad by Central Florida. See, that was kind of my thing. If anything, you could spin it to where you could almost say Central Florida proved themselves. They had already beat a Power 5 football team. So absolutely the committee was justified. But how justified are they going to be this season in any decision that they make? Look, I wouldn't want to be on this committee this year. I wouldn't have to want to explain to the University of Cincinnati why we had you ranked in the top 10 and that we let some team jump over you that was a Power 5 conference champion. I wouldn't want to have to do that. Because, see, here's where the committee is going to have to be very careful this year. They are going to have to be careful, because if they allow a Cincinnati in, if they allow a BYU in, well, then guess what? Now they have to consider them forever, especially if any of those teams are somewhat successful at all. If they get at least 1 win, if they get in somehow and they get at least 1 win in that CFP, you better damn well believe that come next season, people are going to be demanding you expand the playoffs. Hey, bro, we want 16 teams in. We want 8 teams in. This is nonsense. These teams proved that they could do this. And it's going to plague hell on the recruiting game for Alabama, for Clemson, for Notre Dame. I mean, that's another thing. What if Clemson ends up playing Notre Dame? And look, there's one-loss teams and all this stuff. Here's the other thing. Hey, what if somebody's conference championship doesn't even happen, because of the virus? Folks, I'm telling you what, there's a lot to get to here. There's no simple answer to any of this. Period. It's a lot to chew on. It's a lot to think about. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm only telling you what to think about. I'm Drew Duncan for Sync 57. Don't you dare touch that dial.